Welcome to Vendetta Sports Media. This is Eight Sided Freaks, and today we've got an episode on our hands. This is going to be an episode where Jerry and I did our best to scrounge together some topics. There isn't shit for news, especially current event news. You know, we don't really need to sit here and, with all due respect to Ben Askren, obviously love Ben Askren, great guy, but there's no reason to be like, man, this sucks. Man, I'd like to see Ben get better. Like all the news we have in MMA is just unfortunate things. From retired fighters, we just sit and go, man, I hope he's okay. And that doesn't really make for the best episode. So we're pulling the John Jones retirement card out of our pocket because we have yet to play that card over the last couple of weeks.
We've been saving it for a rainy day like this.
Yeah, we saved it for a rainy day, and it is absolutely fucking pouring.
Yep.
And we're gonna play that card, and then that'll lead us into some talk about Tom Aspinall, and then after that we're gonna hit some UFC White House talks with that whole. I'm sure people have seen that was fairly big in terms of UFC news that did some rounds. We're going to talk about our opinions on that and maybe some potential fights that could happen there. And talk about whether we like that or hate that. And then we're going to run through the list of current UFC champions, talk about what we would like to see next from them, and some fights that we think would be interesting for the unbooked champions. We won't spend too much time with booked champions. And then we're going to end the card with some UFC Nashville talk, and that is ending the card because it is not a great fight card. We're going to talk about the main and co-main events and then hit some final thoughts. So that is the docket for today. That's the best we could do, and I think we did a fairly good job of pulling together some topics out of thin air. So that's the episode for this week.
Yeah, not a whole lot going on in the world of UFC at the moment.
Yeah. Would have loved some fight announcements, would have loved something worthwhile, but they're just not really out there.
No. And I mean, as we talked before, the next pay-per-view is UFC 320. That's next pay-per-view that's unbooked. And that's in October. So we have no idea anything going to happen on that card. And we probably won't for another month and a half at the current rate UFC's been announcing these pay-per-views.
Yeah. I don't know how many people realize that is UFC Noche was originally supposed to be a pay-per-view. That has been changed to a fight night. But the gap in between UFC 319 on August 16th, then the next pay-per-view is in October. After that, the whole month of September is skipped. So you got like a 6-week gap between pay-per-views. So that's going to cause some waiting in terms of big fight announcements. Unless they're announcing big fights for those fight night events, which there are some. Diego Lopez and Gene Silva is a fairly big fight, but nothing.
That's going to be an entertaining fight as well.
Yeah, but it's not going to be anything earth-shattering. Like we'll be waiting on some of the bigger announcements, if that makes sense. So
I mean, yeah, just looking at the ones in between 319 and 320, you got Johnny Walker and Zhang Mingyang.
Yep.
That's a Singapore card. You got Nasruddin Imavov and Caio Borralho, and then that Lopez Silva fight, which main event wise, those are kind of 2.5 really fun fights potentially, but it's like you're missing that next level that we get from a pay-per-view, in my opinion.
Yeah, it'll be a strong run of fight nights. It's just going to be a fairly big gap in between the pay-per-views. It's nice when you can rip off 2 or 3 fun fight nights and then be back to the pay-per-view instead of, can we do 6 of these? Like, I'm sure there'll be a gap week in there somewhere, but can we do 5 strong fight night events in a row? I really doubt it. I really doubt it based on what we're seeing from UFC Nashville this week. So
yeah, not great. I mean, even the last UFC Nashville card had its issues with, what was it meant to be? It was meant to be Sandhagen and someone else, but then Rob Font stepped in. Oh, it was Sandhagen and Umar Nurmagomedov, and then Umar pulled out. Rob Font stepped in, and I mean, being there for that, I'd love to see Corey Sandhagen win, but I was hoping we'd get some stand-up and not just Sandhagen ragdolling him on the ground for 25 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think many people saw that coming.
No, did what he had to do to win, but it's intriguing card to say the
Yeah.
least at that point.
Yep, I agree. All right, let's get to John Jones announcing his retirement from MMA. This came months after he, you know, last fought Stipe Miocic. His UFC heavyweight title run ended up being a win over Ciryl Gane. Like, who cares about that? And a win over Stipe Miocic, who, with all due respect to Stipe, I think Stipe is an all-time great, but like steps in there old as hell for one last title fight, and he did what he could, but it was clearly, one guy was younger and closer to their prime in that matchup. So that was the John Jones run at heavyweight. He has retired, will not be fighting Tom Aspinall. Rumor has it, and I tend to believe this rumor because two people have said this. Dana White has said this, and Ariel Helwani have said this. And when Ariel Helwani and Dana White are both spinning the same story, I tend to believe said story because if there was any way that Ariel Helwani could, take a dig at the UFC, he would. But
Mhm.
in this specific case, Dana and Ariel have both said that John had a number that he needed to fight Tom. UFC provided that number, and he agreed to do the fight, and then up and just said, it's like I'm not doing the fight. Ariel and Dana have both said that, and when those two guys are on the same side agreeing, and something I tend to, take it as practically fact at that point. So we're not seeing that fight, and John Jones retires from MMA. What do you make of John's decision to not take the Tom Aspinall fight?
Honestly, I'm not surprised. I was really, I'm gonna just bring it up to like the Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler fight. I was really confident that fight was never gonna happen. I thought there was actually a chance that this John Jones and Tom Aspinall fight was gonna happen at some point, but I'm glad it's kind of, for the time being, out of the way and done. And we'll touch on Tom Aspinall, but I think heavyweight has kind of just been slowed down completely by John Jones. And all respect to him, best mixed martial artist we've probably ever seen. Hell of a run at light heavyweight. His heavyweight one, it's like he technically, I think, has what, the longest title reign in heavyweight UFC heavyweight history by days
Yeah.
count. But
If you
it's
go a days count and not title
yes,
defenses,
and
yes.
he defended it once against a guy who hadn't fought in 3.5, 4 years, and the guy won it against Ciryl Gane, which Ciryl Gane's probably going to get another title shot soon, and hopefully he doesn't. I have my thoughts on Ciryl Gane, and I think they're pretty similar to yours, where we don't rate him very highly. But I'm not surprised John retired. I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, he's scared to fight Tom Aspinall," but it is a very different thing fighting a guy who can actually hit like a heavyweight, can wrestle like a heavyweight, unlike Ciryl Gane or Stipe Miocic. I think it's a very different challenge for John. And if he did fight him, I would have picked Tom Aspinall to win just because he is far younger, far quicker at this point in his career. But hey, it's John Jones. Anything's possible with him. I don't know if I think he'll come back and fight again.
Yeah, and it's the John Jones retirement decision. I think John Jones is the greatest fighter of all time, just from what he's accomplished. And you could say that since he's secured that position, he doesn't need to fight again. Um, and to that, people who say that, I mean, I do get where you're coming from, but I think the opportunity to fight Tom was a really big one.
Mhm.
When you look at what Tom has done, he's not just a Joe Schmo. During this whole situation, John was comparing Tom to someone like the Anthony, or not Anthony Smith, like the Dominic Reyes of the world, who, and the Surreal Gowns of the world. But those guys just simply didn't have the run of fights that Tom Aspinall had had. Tom has
Mhm.
never been a champion. Well, he couldn't because you were sitting at the top of the division, not willing to fight him. Like, of course he wasn't a champion. He's now a champion that you're gone. He's secured the belt.
He
But
even
when you,
defended he even defended the interim title while we were waiting for John to actually make
yeah,
it.
and when you look at what Tom has done in this heavyweight division, he's beaten Alexander Volkov. He's beaten Sergey Spivak. He's beaten Curtis Blades. That is 2, 3, and 4 in those rankings. Um, and all three of them were first round finishes, 2 knockouts and a submission. So he's doing it in a variety of ways. I don't really care what weight class it is.
The fact he submitted Volkov that easily was kind of remarkable as well.
Yes, tremendous performance. The Volkov performance in hindsight might be the best performance of his career.
Yeah, and then there's the whole Curtis Blades where he blew out his knee and he came back and looked like he hadn't been injured, hadn't missed a thing. It's pretty crazy how well he's been fighting.
Yeah. And frankly, John should be lucky that Tom blew out his knee and was sidelined for a year or so. Because if he hadn't blown out his knee in that first Curtis Blades fight and beat Curtis Blades, Tom's the guy that you come back and fight, and it's a whole different discussion. And maybe he never comes back at that point. But when you look at the run that he has gone on, it's not just some young hotshot. It is the only guy in the division he hasn't beat is John and Surreal, and then you have to go down to guys like your Gelton Almeidas, and then you start looking at Waldo Cortez Acosta. Like that's the level of guys that he hasn't beat. Like that's not saying he's cleared out the division, but like we're getting to a point where like he's taken out a lot of these guys.
I mean, going further down the rankings, like right after those two guys, he's beat Tybura, he's beat Sergey Spivak as well. Like it's really those two and Cyril Gahn that he hasn't fought yet because he hasn't had the chance to. And we were meant to see Cyril Gahn fight him for the interim title, but Cyril ran crying and hiding.
Yeah. So yeah, Surreal didn't take that. I mean, one of the most frustrating things I've ever seen in MMA is when Tom has, I forget which fight it was after, but Tom had a great performance. I believe it was at UFC London. And he says, I'm going to Paris and I want to be there to call out the winner of Sergey Spivak and Surreal Gahn. And Gahn gets to win.
Pavlovich or Spivak?
Spivak.
It was Spivak? Oh.
Yeah. And he wanted to go in there and do the face off and do all these things to promote a fight. And Surreal Gahn, they ask him what he wants next, and he doesn't say Tom Aspinall. He says John Jones or Stipe Miocic, like 2 fights that he doesn't have a shot in hell at getting. And then when it comes time to fight for the interim title, well, they don't call Surreal Gahn. They call Tom Aspinall instead. And that's exactly why. And it's one of the most frustrating things I've ever seen in MMA is the fact that that fight hasn't already happened. And now it's going to happen now that John Jones is out of the picture. And it's just completely like, now I don't care. Like now I hate that fight just because of the way that Surreal Gahn has approached getting that fight. It's like now he gets to fight Tom now that Tom's a champ. Like that's ridiculous to me, especially considering in his last fight, he fought Volkov, lost clear as day, and they give him the decision win. Like he didn't very clearly lose 2 out of 3 rounds. It's one of the easiest fights I've ever seen to score, and the judges got it wrong. And Surreal wins that fight. He had no business winning that fight at all. And we're going to throw him in there with Tom Aspinall like he deserves it. From a competition standpoint, he doesn't deserve it. From a career management standpoint, doesn't deserve it. I can't really think of a reason he deserves it other than the fact that Tom's already beat all the other guys you could give a chance to.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to be like, oh, well, Volkov should get the fight instead, but he already beat Volkov in the first round. Yeah. So, like, it makes it harder for me to stand here and be like, let's give it to Volkov instead.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious that Cyril Gahn is going to get the title shot because, as you just said, he lost that fight to Volkov. Volkov got submitted in the first round. Might have even been in the first, 2-3 minutes? Or I guess 3 minutes, 45 seconds in. So if he did that to the guy who technically should have won the fight against Cyril Gahn, what is he going to do to Cyril Gahn? My question is, can he get him out quicker than John Jones did?
Yeah. I mean, seriously, like, especially if he grapples. Like, there's a world where, like, Tom strikes with him, and then it becomes a much closer fight, and, like, maybe Surreal wins that fight. I wouldn't pick him to do so. But, like, if he grapples, like, proactively and early, like, oh, my God. Like,
I think Tom Aspinall has an underrated fight IQ because he's able to do wrestling and he's able to strike and he can do both at a very good level. Like we've talked about and saw the news on the Alex Pereira potential fight when he was on his light heavyweight run. He's like, hey, everyone just keeps saying I'm going to stand in front of Alex Pereira and strike with him so I can show I'm a better striker. Tom Aspinall said, I'm going to run full head right at him, pick him up, throw him on the ground and wrestle him because I know he can't do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he'll do to Cyril Gahn.
Yeah. I tend to agree with that, especially when the tape on Cyril Gahn is like the only fight where he's had like a shred of like against good fighters. Like you can bring up like the Dontel Mays fight where he's rolling for heel hooks, but like against good fighters at the top of the division, the only guys had grappling success against is Sergey Spivak, and like
It's not
Spivak's a little,
a lot.
huh?
That's not saying a whole lot.
Yeah, Spivak's a little chubby and like. If things aren't going his way, he kind of, packs it in and goes home and like, I got kicked in the body a little harder than I wanted to.
Mm.
And like I like Waldo Cortez Acosta, but Spivak just had a very close fight with Waldo. Like it's just not he's just not a guy who I rate as like all right, you showed some defensive grappling against Spivak. Now you're good to take on the best grapplers in the division. Like there's a reason we haven't seen Gahn fight fucking Jelton Almeida either. Like, there's a reason that fight hasn't been booked. So,
here's another interesting one because we saw his fight. What was it? Was it with Curtis Blades where he pretty much just gave up? Was that Almeida?
Oh, Almeida, yeah.
He just straight up like looked like he stopped even trying to fight after almost putting him away in the first round. Just gave up in the second and got finished.
Well, he got tired, Jerry. Come on.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't work too hard in the heavyweight division. That's why Tom Aspinall is having success. He gets out very quickly.
Yeah.
Even going back to the Cyril Gahn wrestling, like Francis Ngannou couldn't wrestle to save his life, yet he somehow out wrestled Cyril Gahn when they fought for the heavyweight title.
Yeah. Like Cyril Gahn also does dumb shit in grappling.
Yep.
Round 5, I'm on top. Let me roll for a heel hook against Francis Ngannou. What are you doing? That's the dumbest thing of all time. The absolute dumbest. And that's another problem with Cyril is just does the dumbest thing you could possibly imagine at every given like chance, and it's baffling, absolutely baffling. So,
question for you then: do you think that there's any chance we see somebody else get the shot, or is it, in your opinion, does it have to be Cyril Gahn?
I don't think it has to be Cyril, but I think that's a pretty.
Yeah,
I think it will be Cyril.
I agree.
And I'm not dying to see any of these rematches. The only other potential one is Jelton Almeida, but like I don't know what to do there with Almeida because do we run Almeida out there against like Volkov and try and make it so Almeida stamps his title fight? What happens if he loses to Volkov? And you can say that about him versus Pavlich as well. Or excuse me, Pavlich. Like, do we throw him out there against Sergey? And great, he beat Sergey, so like now he stamped himself as someone deserving to fight for the title. But if he loses, shit, he just lost to a guy that Tom's already beat. So I think Almeida may be able to sit out and get one.
Yeah, I think that's the only other one. Otherwise, like I don't see any reason it's not going to be Cyril Gahn. But if it happened, like he fucks up again, and Dana White still hates him, I could see Almeida. But it's like we saw what happened when he fought Curtis Blades. He went on this long winning streak to start his UFC career, fought up a guy who's actually in the top 5, got his ass whooped because he got tired, but also he just got whooped. Then comes back and beats Alexander Romanov. That's a hell of a name.
He's now in the PFL.
Exactly. He's not even in the UFC anymore. And then he beat Sergey Spivak. So Spivak has his moments here and there, but again, nothing too special.
We keep bringing up fighters beating Sergey Spivak today.
Yes,
yet have we said said fighter has lost to Sergey Spivak? We've mentioned several fighters who have beat Sergey Spivak, but we have yet to bring up. Well, he lost to Spivak, so that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, he lost, and Spivak's already lost to Waldo and Almeida. Like, yeah. I think those two should fight, and then one of them gets a title shot at this point.
Yeah, and this is a great example as to why the UFC booked that Rizvan Kunaev and Curtis Blades fight, because they're like, please win, Rizvan. It's why they've booked Tallison, Teixeira, and Derrick Lewis. Please go beat Derrick Lewis, because then we can put some new names in here. Like, they're just trying to do whatever they. I think they signed a heavyweight as well, from one championship. They're just like, holy shit, please
help us. and
What's
then we get Curtis Blades, who somehow wins.
Yeah. And it's crazy because he lost the fight as well.
Yes, he did.
He lost the fight and they raised his hand afterwards.
He even
It's
looked
like the worst
even
possible outcome.
confused. He looked confused. He was like, "Oh, I won. Sick."
The worst possible outcome is we get the prospect. We really want this prospect to beat Curtis so we can get a new name. And he does it. He beats Curtis. But we raise Curtis's hand at the end of the fight and say he won. It's like now we can't even sell people on Curtis like making improvements and getting better because everyone wants him to lose a fight.
Yep.
It's like things couldn't go worse for this heavyweight division. Like the Rizvan decision and the Volkov decision against Gane, it's like let's just keep screwing this division up every chance we get.
Do you think this is the worst men's division? Not necessarily talent wise, but just the way it's been going and the way the activity and all that is running. I think
I'd say that. I was thinking talent at first, and talent is it's close.
Talent's
like you can have discussions on it being the least talented division.
Yeah.
But the as far as the way it's run and the way the fights have been being booked, I think without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Question. It's
and
just
when you're talking talent, you're like, all right, you kind of got to start debating light heavyweight, and then I don't think there's a question about another weight class.
No, I don't think. I mean, you look at even just the top 5 in every other weight class outside of heavyweight and light heavyweight, and you're like, yeah, there is a lot of talent in a lot of different aspects in all those divisions. But
yep. All right, let's move on from slamming the heavyweight division. Next topic on the schedule here today, UFC. I'll just call it UFC White House. I don't really know what to phrase it as, but
that's right.
We were doing the UFC was doing some press for the 4th of July, and sounds like next year they're planning what they call America 250, which is big old grand parade of America's 250th 4th of July. 250 years since declaring independence, and they want to have some big old grand show of it. And of that show, Donald Trump was like, well, we're going to get a fucking UFC fight in here right on the White House grounds. So before we get any deeper here, what are your thoughts on just prep? And also they want 20 to 25,000 spectators. So not sure how that is logistically feasible. I've never been to the White House, so I don't know exactly what you could do on that White House lawn out there to get 20 to 25,000 people in there. But in my mind, I immediately thought of that one time Karate Combat did an event and had Rick Ross host a house party, and they just propped up the thing in the middle of a backyard at a Miami mansion and invited random people. And I'll tell you what, I did have fun watching that. So
that was very entertaining.
I had a lot of fun just kicking my feet up and watching that ridiculous spectacle. So now we're going to do UFC fights on the White House lawn. I mean, I'm partially in on the idea for as ridiculous as it sounds.
Oh, I think it's hilarious. If it actually happens, first of all, there's no way you can get 20 to 25,000 fans. And if you do, they're all going to just be standing along the grass. And how the hell are you going to see anything? It's going to be pure chaos because it's not, I mean, technically you could build something, but even Washington, D.C. in the middle of July, early July, it's not exactly the coolest place in the world. It's probably mid-high 80s, always a chance of rain. So what are you going to do? Build like a little canopy? I could see it being like, I assume you played the UFC video games.
Yes.
Whatever the venue is where you're doing your career and you start out there and it's like a parking lot with a tent set up. That's kind of what I picture UFC White House to be.
It is quite ridiculous, and I will say if they manage to pull this off, I want them to do it like when they did the Karate Combat, like the you warmed up in the house.
Yeah.
At this house party was at.
Let's warming up in the Oval Office or something.
Yeah. You've got people in there getting drinks or going to the bathroom, and like these fighters are trying to warm up in this house, and then when it's time to make the walkout, they kind of have to navigate through the crowd like they're at an actual party. It was a very immersive setting, and I'd like to see something similar from this White House event. Frankly, does it sound absolutely ridiculous? Yes, and that's in my mind what makes it absolutely hilarious. Yep. It would be so incredible, and I've obviously referenced this Karate Combat with Rick Ross hosting. If nobody has ever seen this, go watch a couple clips. Go watch a couple clips on YouTube. I'm not saying you got to sit through the whole broadcast, but when I'm telling you this is one of the funniest combat sports events you'll ever see, it is pure comedy. And if you approach these White House shenanigans is the same and just take it for being funny, it is a tremendous idea. And it obviously has some novelty of fighting at the White House. Like that is a very serious thing, a very serious U.S. monument. And then it does hold some weight there as well. So it is, in my mind, like, screw it. Might as well. At this point with what we're at, like, you only get this chance once. You might as well do it. I'm not even saying you need a full fight card, but just get 2 or 3 fights together, run them out there. I'm just saying screw it at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, you've already seen fighters come out and say, I want to fight. If we're doing UFC White House, I want to fight. John Jones, within an hour or so of Donald Trump saying, oh, yeah, we're bringing a UFC to the White House. Like, oh, I guess I'm getting back in the testing pool.
Yeah.
Let's get ready. UFC White House sounds fun. Conor McGregor put out a thing on Instagram of him and Michael Chandler teasing that again, standing in front of Trump, some AI thing, I'm assuming, of him and Michael Chandler standing in front of the White House. Like, all right, now we can actually finish this off. And it's like, there's guys who want to fight at the White House. Yeah. Do we have to see Colby Covington fight at the White House? I hope not. But that's like bringing me to my question for you is like, what fights do you think, or what fighters, considering the UFC has no American champions outside of Kayla Harrison, you're not going to have a main event of Kayla Harrison and God knows who at that point.
Yeah, because the Amanda Nunes fight would have already happened.
Exactly. Like, who would you want to see fight at the White House?
I think you said the two. If we're gonna do these fights at the White House, we use the venue as a ploy to make fights that fighters would not agree to. Like, if we think there's such a slim chance that Conor McGregor comes back, but if the one chance that we can get him is he's fighting on the White House lawn, fuck it. Use that. If we cannot book John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, but the one opportunity we have is UFC White House, then screw it. We want to see those fights. Use the venue as a ploy to get the guys who won't sign on the dotted line to sign on the dotted line. Are you telling America's champion, John Jones, the best fighter America has ever produced, versus the Brit Tom Aspinall at the White House on the 4th of July? Are you telling me that thing doesn't just run up the pay-per-view buys?
I will say
that not the funniest thing of all time?
Worst case, and I saw someone arguing against that fight for the only reason of like, what if Tom Aspinall comes out and beats the living hell out of John Jones? The Brit beats the American on 4th of July at the White House. There's a little something to it, but I mean, otherwise, like, God, hey, Joshua Van, he's doing it first. He's gonna somehow beat. He's not gonna. I don't think he'll beat Pantoja, but if he does, me and Joshua Van fight at the White House.
I mean, talking about spectacles, imagine watching. We can do the Royval rematch 5 rounds. It'll be the best fight of all time.
Oh, it'd be insane. Shatter every record. But I mean, even looking at like the pound for pound rankings, there is
not many Americans in there, right?
2, I guess you can say. Max Holloway and then Bilal Muhammad, who fights under the Palestinian flag as well at times. So it's like got 1.5 American fighters in the top 15 fighters in the UFC for pound rankings.
Yeah, that is kind of wild that's the case. And that's why you need John and Conor.
Yep.
Like it's crazy as it sounds. But
Conor's talking about running for president or prime minister of Ireland. The president of Ireland fighting America's favorite, Michael Chandler.
Yeah. Are you like that? Like, if we're gonna do this thing, let's not pussyfoot around and make like
that's where you have Elon and Zuckerberg fight.
Yeah. They can open the card. Fuck it. At this point. At this point, I'll lean into all absurdity. Let's get all of our like absurd things UFC wants to do, get them out of the way right there.
Yeah.
And then after that, we can get a little more serious on the back end afterwards.
Agreed.
And get all the goofiness out right away.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to have like the Russians fighting at the White House?
No, absolutely not. That's where I draw the line. Islam Makhachev, stay away. Unless you're fighting Ilia Topuria, stay away.
I mean, it could be such a cool event if they were to
Yeah.
do it, but realistically, I highly doubt that it's going to happen unless it's like what you said earlier, maybe 3 fights or something.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can do a full 12 fight card.
Yeah. I see some very serious logistical problems here. In all seriousness,
Oh yes,
I,
let's do it.
but if they can pull it off, I'd actually support it just because I'm a fan of the UFC doing things that are big and grand and draw people in. Like when they did the Sphere, a lot of people who didn't give a shit about the UFC were interested in how that event would go because it was the Sphere. So in all seriousness, as much as like this could be absolutely ridiculous, they could get some absolutely ridiculous fights to take place. In all seriousness, I do think it's a positive when the UFC can lean into these types of things and get more eyes on the sport. Because at the end of the day, one of the things that I'm always rooting for is more eyes on the sport. It's good for the sport, and I'm a fan of the sport. So, like, to me, that's one thing. The one positive of this is that I think that will be accomplished.
Yeah,
For better or worse.
more people would watch who have never watched UFC in their lives. So that's always a good thing. And talk about God, a hell of a July 4th it would be next year. You wake up in the morning, you're ready to go for the day. You watch the hot dog eating contest, watch Joey Chestnut shovel 70 hot dogs into his gut. There's a World Cup going on, which there's a chance the USA plays in Philly on July 4th in the World Cup in the knockout stage, which that would be something. You probably have a bunch of baseball, and then you close the night out with the UFC fighting at the White House. Sign me up for that.
Yeah, I will say July 4th next year. I just looked also on a Saturday.
Yes, exactly. I think that's where the whole talk came is it is a Saturday next year.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some hypothetical fights.
Oh,
all right. So
this is what we like.
we do love our hypotheticals here. Hypotheticals are fun, especially when sometimes the UFC reality, not fun. Sometimes UFC reality is Derrick Lewis versus Tallison Teixeira. Not fun. So we're going to take some time to talk about some hypotheticals. We're going to do fight bookings for champions who are unbooked. So we're not going to be breaking into, your Dricus Duplessis versus Hamzat Chimaevs because, well, they're going to fight here in, a month and a half or so. So we'll talk about the unbooked champions, and we'll start off at men's flyweight, work up, and then we'll close the discussion with the women. Ooh. All right. Flyweight. Alexandre Pantoja. This one is kind of probably going to be the least interesting of the discussion. But Pantoja, what do you want to see from Pantoja moving forward?
Joshua Van. We've already kind of talked about it the last few weeks as well with his incredible performance against Brandon Royval. He did the face-off with Pantoja. Pantoja's pretty much said, yeah, we're doing this fight. I'm fighting him next. So I think that one's, like you said, pretty straightforward of what we want to see. Or, I mean, I don't know who else I'd want to see fight at this point because he's already whooped both Brandons multiple times. Yep. Whooped Power Fronts and kind of kicked everybody else who's fought his ass.
Yeah. The flyweight contenders right now are people who have it's Josh Van, people Pantoja have beat, or people who have lost to the people Pantoja has beat. So that's the division we're working with right now. And you also have Manel Kopp who just can't fight. So like Manel, we need you to win one, please. Manel, we want to give you a title shot so bad, but you just need to show up and win one more. Manel, come on. Get your act together, pal.
Hey, I mean, we have Amir Albazi and Tatsuro Taira fighting as a main event coming up soon. So
yeah, I love my flyweight main events, but
not that one.
Yeah, my God. All right, so Josh Van is the answer there at flyweight. Bantamweight, we have Merab Dvalishvili as the champion, currently sitting on defenses over Sean O'Malley, who he also beat to win the title, and a defense over Umar Nurmagomedov. Those are the 1 and 2 ranked guys in the weight class. And then you have a booked Piotr Yan versus Marcus McGee. That fight is happening here in a couple weeks. Ridiculous fight, but it is what it is. And then you have Corey Sandhagen in the mix, and then you get into your Song Yadongs, Davison Figueiredos, Marlon Chito Veras, Mario Bautista, Rob Font, and Henry Cejudo. Rounding out the top 10. What do you want to see from the bantamweight champ?
This is one where I could be happy in many different ways. Obviously, we're done with O'Malley, finally. Fine by me. I don't necessarily need to see Umar again unless Umar's made some amazing changes because he also got his ass whooped. Then you get to Petr Yan and Corey Sandhagen. As you said, it's ridiculous that Petr Yan's fighting, what is it, Marcus McGee. That makes no sense whatsoever. If anything, it should have been Petr Yan fighting Corey Sandhagen. Then you have a clear title contender next. I'm a big Corey Sandhagen fan. I think both of us, I think all three of us are on this show, at least enjoy watching Corey Sandhagen fight. I'd love for him to finally get his title shot. Don't know how it would go. That doesn't matter. But I think Corey Sandhagen is my answer. I'm also perfectly fine if he fights Petr Yan. If say Yan goes and just destroys Marcus McGee, that's fine with me as well. We did see them fight already, and I mean, they fought already, didn't they?
Yep.
And it was pretty one-sided for a bit of that, but like Petr Yan's one of those guys who he's dangerous as hell. There is a lot of things that he can do better from that first fight. I think going down to Song Yadongs and Figueiredos, that's kind of stretching it a bit. But really, I'm happy with either Yan Sandhagen or fuck it. Do them both in the same night. And I'll throw a wild one out there. Just say the Pantoja fight does happen earlier and Pantoja goes out and whoops Joshua Van pretty quick. I'm not opposed to Pantoja trying to move up because he would have pretty much cleared out that entire division. That's the definition of what you do trying to become a double champ. You go out, you beat everybody, you fight everybody who comes your way, then you can try and move up. But not opposed to that as a lifeline if something happens with the other two.
Yeah, I kind of doubt that outcome just because it feels like Merab and Pantoja are both on the same page. Everything I've seen is what these guys are like. I just want to keep fighting guys in my weight class and keep racking up defenses. That's the way that I want to.
Love that. That's great.
Me as well. And I like some double champ stuff too as well. I see the appeal. I think there's some positives in it. I don't think it's all negative. But right now where we're currently at with the double champ stuff, I'd like a break from it. I'd like some defenses. And for the Merab side of things, I think you hit the nail on the head. Corey Sandhagen and Petr Yan. Those are the next two guys as long as Petr Yan gets through Marcus McGee. And frankly, if Marcus McGee wins, like,
shit,
screw it. Like, that's just kind of the esteem that I hold Petr Yan in. Like if he were to go out there and beat Petr, I'd be fine with Marcus McGee getting a title fight. As ridiculous as that sentence sounds, but like at the end of the day, I just have to respect the outcomes of fights. Assuming it's not like some robbery or something like that. But it's the same reason I was fine with the Umar Nurmagomedov title shot because he went out there and he beat Corey Sandhagen. And like once you beat Corey Sandhagen, I'm not going to complain about you not having a good enough win anymore. Before that, I was pounding the table that he needed a big win, and he went out and got it, and he earned his title fight. Now he's got to go rack up some more before he gets a rematch. But, you know, when you beat a guy of that caliber, you can get the title fight. But for argument's sake, I think Petr wins that fight. And I think Corey and Yan are the two fights. I think we just figure out the Corey fight right now, and we'll have Yan fight the winner. So I'd lean with Corey first, but like if they went in the opposite direction, I wouldn't really. It wouldn't make much sense based on timelines, considering Petr is fighting upcoming and Corey's already got his win in the rearview mirror that he needed to get. So I want the Corey fight first, but I wouldn't really complain otherwise. And I will say as well, before we close out the bantamweight division, I think that Petr can have a better performance than his first one. As much as that fight was really one-sided, there's rumors Petr Yan was injured, and it would make sense because just the way he fought in that fight was the most
just cautious.
Yeah, it was the most cautious I've seen him. It's the most. It's a lot of things that are uncharacteristic of his style in his career. So I tend to believe that he was injured. At the time when that fight happened, I wasn't like, oh, he's clearly injured. But like when you hear it after the fact, and I understand that argument and don't doubt that based on what we saw in there. So I think Petr can put on a better performance, and I'd like to see Petr get the shot because he was when we did our preview, he was my pick to go out there and be the champ at the end of the year. So I would like to see Corey go accomplish or Piotr go accomplish that. And I love Corey, and I'd love to see him be champion as well. So I think this weight class, and Merab is doing great things as well. So I think this weight class is in pretty good hands for the next 2 championship fights, we'll say, because regardless of how this next one ends, say we can run the fight again, say Corey beats Merab, we can run a rematch, or we can do the Jan and Corey rematch. I just think there's some fun iterations you can make between those 3 guys. So I'm pumped with where this weight class is.
And I mean, the other fight just in this division that I still would love to see is Corey Sandhagen and Sean O'Malley.
Yep.
Or even the Piotr Jan and O'Malley rematch, because that was another robbery, in my opinion.
Yep. I
so
agree.
This division is set up perfectly for many fights down the line.
Yep. Jumping up to featherweight. Alexander Volkanovski is your champion. He obviously, lengthy title reign, loses it to Ilia Topuria, regains against Diego Lopez in what I thought was a great performance. Now we're looking to see if he can defend it for the first time. And this is a weird one because of the rankings. Number 1, Max Holloway. Hey.
Run it back.
Don't rank him. Like, he's a lightweight. Number 2, Movsar Evloev, who a lot of people thought should have been the last title challenger. But he is currently booked against UFC debutant Aaron Pico. What happens? You obviously, we have that one. Someone's got to win that fight, and we'll see. Number 3, Ilia Topuria. Hey, he's a lightweight. Get him out of the rankings. What are we doing?
Ilia's ranked still in featherweight?
Yeah, and he's number 3. If he's going to be ranked, he needs to be number 1. It doesn't really make much logical sense. Diego Lopez, our number 3 ranked guy. Ilia and Diego were tied at 3, but there is no drop off, so we've got extra guys ranked. Whatever, it doesn't make any sense.
UFC rankings at its finest.
Yeah. Diego, point being, next guy in line, obviously just lost his title fight, booked against Gene Silva for UFC San Antonio, September 13th. Yair Rodriguez, number 4. Arnold Allen, number 5. Then we have also number 5, Brian Ortega. He is fighting number 8, Aljamain Sterling. You've got number 7, Lerone Murphy in there. Josh Emmett, Gene Silva, Yusuf Zalal, and then you run to your outside of your top 10. So that's the current cluster. The division isn't that confusing, but when you're just trying to riddle off the rankings, it's confusing because you've got 7 guys ranked in the same spot, multiple guys who aren't in the weight class. Let's just clean this one up for me, please, for future. But what do you want to see next from Volkanovski?
First of all, that Ortega and Aljo fight could be some very high level grappling. That could be
that's fun.
I think that's a very fun fight.
Also, I do think it's funny that Ortega was like, I'm going to go to 55. Then he got hit by Diego Lopez, and he was like, no, never mind. He was pretty big. I don't want to go any bigger. I'll stay at 45.
Because, I mean, there was talks of him going up and trying to fight like a Gaethje or an Oliveira type guy. And, well, Diego Lopez hits hard, but Justin Gaethje hits harder.
Yeah.
Back to, like, the actual question at hand, like, I think Movsar is the right person to fight, but it seems like the UFC's pissed off against him about something, or pissed off at him about something, because he seems to just keep getting passed over and over and over again. The guy I would love to see get a title fight is Arnold Allen. I love all the English fighters, and Arnold Allen's done a good job. He has lost some fights when he was right there, but that's against your Max Holloways. That's when you're trying to make that final step up, and you run into one of the best fighters this division's ever seen. And there's a reason it's been, there's a reason Max is still number 1, I guess. Him and Volk at 1 and 2 for outside of Topuria's 2 title wins. It's been those 2 at 1 and 2 for the better part of the last decade.
Yep.
So I think Evloev, long things short, should get the next title fight. I wouldn't be opposed if it was like an Arnold Allen or a Yair Rodriguez, but I feel like those guys, and we saw what Volk did to Yair when they fought previously for the belt. So,
yeah. So this division to me is in a weird spot because I would have been fine with the Evloev just not fighting and then being given the title fight. Like that would have been made logical sense to me. And now we've got him booked against Aaron Pico, and this is another situation where Aaron Pico's never fought in the UFC. But if you go out there and beat Movsar Evloev, who am I to say you don't deserve a title fight at that point?
Mm-hmm.
But the contrary to that is, how does that line up from a timeline perspective of when we want Volkanovski to fight? Because we're looking at July 26th, I believe that fight is, or 29th, or end
Yeah.
of July. They're fighting in UFC Abu Dhabi, 5 rounds, co-main event. But when is Volkanovski trying to get in there again? Is it going to be that UFC 320 date in October? Is he looking at it November or December? Because if it's a December or November, they can probably make that turnaround. Whoever wins on the 29th. But if you start looking at Volkanovski's honing in on that October date, then maybe that's not as realistic of a turnaround from a recovery from a 5-round fight to another fight. So, in that scenario, I think things get weird because, just who is he gonna like? I like Arnold Allen, and I'd like to see Arnold Allen fight for a title, but I do think he needs wins before he can do that. Very close fight with Mazvar Vloyev, I will say. Very close fight, and if that's 5 rounds, I would have loved to see that go on for 2 more. And like it feels like Allen wants to fight all these guys, and he's willing to fight, but he just can't get the fight. Like you just haven't seen a fight booking. Like there were rumors that he was going to fight Lerone Murphy. There was been rumors he's going to fight Yair. There's been rumors that he was going to fight Aljamain Sterling, and now Aljamain's off the table. Those other guys are still on the table, but he just hasn't got that fight booking. And I'd love to see him against any of those guys for his career. And I like Arnold Allen a lot. I think he's very talented. I'm not going to fighters who lose to Max Holloway at featherweight. Like I just simply am not. I almost don't even count that one.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's got the loss on his record, but like I'm never like, well, this guy's a bum or this guy doesn't deserve this. He lost to Max Holloway. Like that's just not going to be a reaction I'll have.
If we did that reaction to every person Volk or Max Holloway beat, then we're having our next title fight be Yusuf Halal or John Silva.
Yeah, exactly. And it's yeah. So I think the winner of the Pico and Evloev fight should get it, and I think some of these other guys that I'd like to see fighting for the title, I just need to see wins. I'd be very pissed if Yair got it. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't.
I think it's ridiculous if he got another title fight, but it seems like that was only in the cards if they were going to do that UFC 320 on UFC Noche and wanted a Mexican fighting for the belt. I felt like that was the
As you get out of jail free card.
Yeah, but now that is not the fight, it feels like that is no longer a outcome. So
getting a win over Patricio Pitbull as your after 2 losses in a row. Personally, I don't think that warrants a title shot.
Especially when one of those losses is Ortega.
Yep.
Like I get if it was Holloway and Volkanovski were the 2 losses, I'd be like, maybe we can do this. But when one of them is Ortega, I just don't see it. And last thing I'll add here, Gene Silva getting pretty close, so win over Lopez would put him in a good spot. But from a timeline perspective, I don't think that is a turnaround that would make a ton of sense.
No.
Considering that fight September 13th.
Yep.
All right. Next weight class, lightweight. Ilia Topuria has the belt, and this one's pretty open. We've talked about this recently, but what do you want to see for Ilia's first title defense?
I'm going to just keep this one quick because we have talked about it a lot on our recent episodes around UFC 317, but I think Armin's the one who deserves the shot. Whether or not he gets it, it's a different thing, but not opposed to a Justin Gaethje fight either. I'll just put that out there. I mean, obviously the one we all want is Islam, but that's not happening. So,
yep. Yeah, I'd love Islam, but not happening. And then it looks like the 3 guys that are in talks for it are Armin Saruki and Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett. I would rank those 3 in my, if I were the UFC making calls offering title fights, call Armin, call Gaethje, call Paddy. That would be my 1, 2, 3. So
I think the Paddy fight could very much happen, but I think it's stupid if it does.
I agree. Welterweight, Jack Della Maddalena is the champion. Sounds like he's fighting Islam Makhachev. It's just not booked. So, do you have any objections to the Islam Makhachev title fight?
Honestly, not really. If Islam's moving up, he should fight for the title. I don't think he should have moved up. I think he should have tried to defend more, as we were talking about earlier. But if he's moving up, deserves a title shot anyway. And it's kind of sad because you still have your Sean Brady's, your Shavkat's. I still think Shavkat's probably the best fighter in that division. He's just been hurt so much. So
Yep, I won't really add much because everything I'd say is just off the we're in 100% agreement there. So we'll give Islam the title fight, but Shavkat is the guy who is probably the most deserving of the actual welterweights, discounting Islam moving up, but it sounds like Islam's going to get the shot first. That is fine. Another small note on the rankings: Sean Brady number 2, Shavkat Rakhmonov number 3. I like Sean Brady. I think Sean Brady's very good, but he can't be above Shavkat.
Agreed. That's someone that fighting it. We talked about UFC White House. If Sean Brady gets a title fight, or if he wins the belt somehow, he would be a damn good one.
Yep.
Isn't he? He's a Philly guy.
Yep.
Yeah. So
right around the corner, pretty close.
Yep. I think he'd be a solid one to have on that card.
I agree. All right, we can skip middleweight because we've got a title fight booked, and that one's pretty straightforward as far as the next contender goes. We've got Imavov and Baralho booked, so that one's pretty straightforward. We've got our title fight, and we've got our seeming number 1 contender fight booked. So
that's going to be a fun fight, Baralho and Imavov.
I agree. I'm excited about that one. Light heavyweight, Magomed Ankalaev. This division's a mess. We've got Alex Pereira is ranked number 1 in the weight class. He just lost his title to Magomed. And then your contenders are Yuri Prochazka, who has not been able to beat Alex Pereira, Carlos Ulberg, Khalil Rountree, Jan Blachowicz, Jamal Hill, Alexander Rakic, Dom Reyes, Volkan Ozdemir, Nikita Krylov is your top 10. Jerry, who's fighting for the title?
God, at the current rate, nobody.
Yeah. It's been pretty quiet for a minute here.
Yeah, Pereira's been he's been nowhere to really be heard from. So it seems like he's quiet. Yuri's been at school.
Yeah.
Ulberg, I don't know if he deserves a title shot. Yeah, I can't even think of who his last win was against, or who his big win that would put him over the line is.
It was Jan Blachowicz in unimpressive fashion.
That's right. Then yeah, you can't have Khalil Rountree fight for it. You can't really have Jan fight for it. Then you're getting into that dangerous territory of Jamal Hill's fought for it multiple times and lost every single time.
Except for the one he won.
except for when he beat Clover. That is fair.
Post Achilles tear, Jamal has been a tragic run.
Yeah, and I mean, that's such a sad thing because he had potential to be like a dog in this division and run this division for a bit. But that's what happens when basketball, when ball is life. Realistically, I think Pereira should get the next title shot. Whether or not he actually does is a completely different thing because it sounds like Magomed wants to fight somebody, which is crazy considering it seems like he never wanted to fight anybody before he was the champ.
Yeah. I would say Pereira, and I say Pereira based on he did the UFC a lot of favors, and I think it's fine to repay that favor with the immediate rematch in a weight class where Yuri is your top contender, and he's lost to Pereira a couple of times, so I'm fine with the Alex rematch as much as I don't love it. I'm fine with it, so it is what it is. And Ulberg, no. Rountree, no. Like if we booked Rountree and Ulberg, then the winner may be, but Jan's in there a little bit, but how many more fights does Jan have left in him? Reyes thinks he's on a resurgence. Who is he going to be? It's we just got to get some of these guys in there fighting each other. Well, we're waiting for Pereira and Ankalaev, so I hope that's the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, because the only fight I can actually think of doesn't Nikita Krylov has a fight booked, I think, actually? Yeah, he's fighting Bogdan Guskov at the Abu Dhabi card. And then we have Johnny Walker and Zhang Ming Yang. So there's nothing else booked in this division by top rankings, at least.
Yep. Those are all guys ranked between 10 and 15. So
yeah, I'm just saying, if you need to call somebody in, there's a guy we really enjoyed talking about on this show sitting at home. Anthony Smith title. No, I'm just kidding.
The first Anthony Smith reference in a minute.
Yes.
The days of Anthony Smith and Karate Combat both mentioned in the same episode.
We don't talk about the light heavyweight division much anymore for some reason. I don't know what that could be. It's maybe to the point you said of inactivity or something like that. But
yeah, there's shit to talk about. All right, we talked about heavyweight, so we'll skip over heavyweight. We kind of talked about who should be fighting for a title there. Strawweight, Zhang Weili, champion. Verna Jandiroba, ranked number 1. Tatiana Suarez, number 2. Yan Xiaonan, number 3. Amanda Lemos, 4. Jessica Andrade, 5. And then we get into the Dern, Hebas, Ismin Lucindo, Jillian Robertson, Tabitha Ricci. Rounds out your top 10. Who's fighting for a title, or is Weili moving up to 125 pounds? What's your call?
Well, I'm just putting this out there. Tatiana Suarez, ranked number 2, lost to Weili. Yao Xiaonan, number 3, lost to Weili. Amanda Lemos, ranked number 4, lost to Weili. Jessica Andrade had lost to Weili when she won the title the first time. I think it's either Verna Jandiroba or it's time to make that super fight with Valentina Shevchenko. Because the way, and we'll talk about that division as well in a second, but like the way Weili is just mauling these girls, and it's not even close. There was all the talks, and there's a point where Tatiana Suarez was the favorite to win that fight against Weili. She looked completely outclassed, looked confused, and it was just complete levels.
Yeah, I ate that cheese. I was on the wrong side of that one.
But yeah, I think it's either Verna Jandiroba or move up, and I'm fine with whatever Weili wants to do at this point. She's the longest reigning UFC champion across men and women at the moment, so.
Yep, I take Verna, and the reason is 125. We can switch over to 125 now, but 125, you got Valentina champion. Natalia Silva ranked number 1, Manon Fiorot 2, who Valentina just beat, Grasso 3, who did their whole ring around the rosy of a trilogy. Aaron Blanchfield at 4. Jasmine Udovicius 5, Macy Barber 6, Rose Namajunas 7, Tracy Cortez 8, Jessica Andrade 9, Viviana Ujo 10, but she just got cut. So shout out Miranda Maverick. You will be moving up 1 spot to the number 10 rank because you were not cut. All right, so my reason behind wanting to see Weili and Verna is I want to see Valentina and Natalia Silva.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my thought process here. And I don't really have much to add considering Natalia Silva's really impressive win over Alexa Grasso, I think, earned her a title fight. Off the back of her entire run has been impressive. So I want to see Natalia Silva fight Valentina, which that fight is the one I want to see more out of all the iterations of 115 and 125 championship fights. So then that has the counter effect on Weili versus Verna. And then Weili can go up after she beats Verna and fight the winner of this.
Yep, that's kind of where I was at. Where I was like, oh, well, wait a second to talk about this 125 division because there are other fights that are actually exciting in that division. You have Natalia Silva. I'm still in the belief that Aaron Blanchfield and Macy Barber and maybe even Judah Vicious, the way she's been fighting at the moment.
Very good.
Any 3 of those could potentially earn a title shot as well. And this division's interesting. It keeps moving forward. So it does have that negative effect on Weili trying to move up. Similar to what I think should have happened with Islam. Of, oh, shit, we have a bunch of people ready to fight in the welterweight division. Tough luck. Wait until they're done and then move up. But if anyone's deserving of it, I think Weili is, but I would say wait a second and let's see some of these other fights go first.
Yeah. Last thing I'll shout out before we move up. Back at 115, Jillian Robertson has been on a really good run at 115 pounds.
Yes.
I think her ranking's a touch on the disrespectful side, but I think she could be one to work herself and break through some of those girls that Weili has beat, and maybe she can earn herself a title fight at that weight class.
And who is she fighting next? 'Cause doesn't she have a fight booked?
Not that I'm aware of. I will give it a quick double check here.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But unbooked. Yeah. I was thinking of, oh God. Names, words not working too well right now, but who's the some American lady fighter who was on The Ultimate Fighter is who I was thinking of.
Carla?
No, it's one who like lower rankings. Doesn't matter. I can't even think of who it was. It'll
Tisha?
come back. No, it'll come
All
back
right.
at some random point, but no, doesn't matter.
Fair enough. Women's bantamweight. Harrison Nunez. Any objection?
No.
Good, because then you run into the Juliana Pena and Raquel Penningtons of the world. Ooh. All right, let's switch over to UFC Nashville here. UFC Nashville main event: Derrick Lewis versus Tallison Teixeira. Jerry, lead us off here, and then I will pull up the betting odds as you speak.
Oh, well, anytime Derrick Lewis fights, you have no idea what you're really getting in for. And I mean, he's been in a weird place as of late. Earned an interim heavyweight title fight back in 21. Got knocked out by Cyril Gahn. Knocked out Chris Dawkins. Got finished 3 straight times. And has been in that weird place of, I'm a gatekeeper now. Beat Marcos Rodrigo de Lima. Lost to Jaylatin Almeida in a decision. And then knocked out Rodrigo Nascimento. Whereas Tyson Teixeira has won 8 fights in his MMA career. One of them, he's only had 1 UFC fight, and he finished it in 35 seconds of a knockout of Justin Tucker.
Yep.
2 guys who are going to go swinging for it. One of them, far younger, has a better chin. Teixeira's only 25. Derrick Lewis is 40. I think I got my pick pretty set on this one for 2 guys who are going to stand there and throw at each other, but you can never count out the Black Beast, Derrick Lewis's power.
Good. Betting odds -310. Tallison Teixeira, Derrick Lewis +230. I'm going hot take this week. Give me Derrick Lewis.
Hey.
And the reason is A, Tallison Teixeira fairly inexperienced. But B, his Dana White Contender Series fight, he fought a guy who weighed 218 pounds. That means he was just a light heavyweight who elected not to cut weight. And that guy landed too many shots on his chin when in the pocket for my liking. So and Derrick Lewis, I think, is underrated athletically.
Mhm.
Derrick Lewis, I think, is a decent, he's a good enough boxer considering his power level. And I just think that if Derrick Lewis can get past Tallison Teixeira, who is 6'7" and with an 80-something odd inch reach, 83, I think if he can break inside that range, those straights, those kicks, I think if he can break inside those shots, I think he can put one on the chin. I don't think it's and every time that's how the fight ends, but I do think that it's more likely than the +230 odds suggest. I just haven't seen enough from Tallison Teixeira to really trust him as a -300 favorite in the UFC. And I think Derrick Lewis, I think his effort level wanes. But I think when they call him to fight a Brazilian guy that he's never heard of, I think he really wants to win.
Yep.
I think these are the fights that he cares more about winning. I think when he's in there with Cyril Gahn and the ball's rolling the other way, I think that's when he doesn't really care. But when he's in there with Joe Schmo from Brazil, I think he's like, God damn it, they want me to lose to this guy I've never heard of. And I think he kind of takes it personally. And I think you get him in better shape. And I think he wants to win a little bit more. Now, with that being said, this is Thursday. I might see him on the scale on tomorrow, on Friday, and just absolutely go, oh, fuck, he's fat. And really hate my selection here.
It's really which Derrick Lewis shows up. Is it the one who wants to win and wants to fight, or is he like, I'm just here so I'll do the Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah.
Type thing.
Yeah. And one thing I will say about heavyweights, if I can pull together a reasonable path for a heavyweight to win as a +200, I'll take it just because I think it's fine in that weight class to do that. That's why I picked Rizvan Kunaev at +2 something, and he won, but that one didn't pay out. I had Alexander Volkov at +300. He won. That didn't pay out. There's other ones that have hit. I had Waldo at +200 against the Robelis de Spain. I think I had a Walter Walker as an underdog. Or no, I had Lukasz Bresky against Walter Walker as a +200 underdog. So I have hit on these in the past. And it's the logic is that I don't pretend to be, doing science over here. I just see, well, both these heavyweights aren't that good. and one of them can win, so that means the other one can lose. So it's, I mean, if that makes sense. Like I'm not picking like, I'm not picking against like really good fighters who are minus 310s, but
It's the heavyweight division. It always is. All it takes is one punch with some of these guys
yeah,
because it's literally just big dudes who are just going to stand there and swing. You catch one on the chin, it's a better shout.
yeah.
Might say.
I've really dumbed down heavyweight to Tom Aspinall, and then guys who can grapple, because guys who can grapple at heavyweight, when they land takedowns, they're so big it's hard to get up. So
Mhm.
now I go Aspinall, guys who can grapple, to guys who have a reasonable path to victory at plus 200. That has been my thought process at heavyweight. Like I said, I don't think I'm doing science over here, but it's just been my method for the last year, 2 years while I've been picking heavyweight fights. So
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess.
yeah.
And I mean,
Um,
outside 2 robberies, you'd be looking
yeah,
pretty.
yeah, exactly. If if anyone who's betting units, 1 unit bet or 2 units lost on Volkov and Kunaev could have been, plus 3, 5, 5.3 units, 1 plus the 2. So it's a 7 unit swing. There's a lot for any better who's out there running units. So, all right. Co-main event, we have another old veteran, I'll say. I don't like calling people old, but Wonder Boy is the oldest fighter in the UFC at 42 years old, which, boy, did that sneak up on us.
Yeah.
And he's fighting Gabriel Bonfim, and this is another one where we've got a wide spread with the favorite being the younger fighter, Gabriel Bonfim, minus 430, Wonder Boy plus 300. I can lead us off here. I think this one's a pretty easy fight to break down. It's like on the feet, Wonder Boy's going to hit him with side kicks and front kicks and straight shots and jump in and out of range and land some really good shots. But he's probably outclassed here in the grappling. And it sucks to say because Wonder Boy's not even a bad grappler, but like he's been fighting some really good grapplers who are better than him. Bilal Muhammad, Buckley did some good things with some takedowns before landing that right hook, and takedowns are what helped him land that shot. Gilbert Burns, his title fights were against Tyron Woodley, like just could not get over the hump of high-level grapplers, and I think Bonfim is a good enough grappler to go out there and get the job done against Wonder Boy.
Sadly, I'm on the same page as you. You kind of recapped how this fight's going to go down pretty perfectly. It's stand up. Wonder Boy's an advantage. As soon as Wonder Boy gets taken down, might be night, might be game over for him. Well, I'm taking Bonfim. I think he does get the submission finish at some point, but it's one that like Wonder Boy just can't get over that hump of actually fighting grapplers who know what they're doing. And he's also 42 years old, so I don't know how many more fights we have to see, or how many more fights he has. I'm curious if he'll retire after this fight as well. Do you think that's a possibility, or do you think we'll see him in the cage at least one more time?
I saw an interview clip saying that his contract is running out. I don't know exactly how many fights he said he had left, but he was basically like, I don't see an end to this. Like wasn't even considering retirement yet, which, I mean, I think he's still competitive enough to where I'm not too concerned about him retiring. Maybe if he goes out here and gets knocked out and we're now coming off 2 knockout losses, maybe that tune changes. But for right now, he's really losing. He's got a couple knockout losses. Like he's been hit with big shots. Like his knockouts aren't like he ate a right hand from Buckley. I don't think that's a sign of your chin just falling apart. Pettis jumped off the cage, caught him off guard. It happens. And outside from that, it's been largely grappling deficiencies that have cost him. So if he looks slow or old, then tune could change here, like I said. But right now, I'm not too concerned. Seems like he keeps himself in better shape than most 42-year-olds. I will say that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still a fight that I kind of want to see of him and Michael Venom Page, which
instead Michael Venom Page is fighting Jared Cannonier. Like what the hell? Like
yeah. I don't know how that one came about. Is that at welterweight or is that at middleweight?
Welterweight.
Can Cannonier even cut to welterweight at this point in his
excuse
career?
me, sorry, middleweight, 185.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even
he'd have to cut off an arm.
Yeah, I don't know how that fight was getting booked, but whatever.
Yeah. All right, let's hit some final thoughts on this card. It's a very weird card, I think, is my theme. Like, just looking at this, and there's a lot of weird matchups, and there's a lot of Vitor Petrino going up to heavyweight for the first time. Junior Tafa dropping to light heavyweight for the first time. Chris Curtis going to welterweight for the first time in years. And a lot of that. Kennedy Nzechukwu continuing his heavyweight run, which still feels weird in my mind. Then you also have Fatima Klein minus 1,400 against Melissa Martinez. Mike Davis minus 1,100 against Mitch Ramirez. So it is a very, very weird card. What stands out to you when you're looking at this one?
I think weird's a great way to put it. Like there's some entertaining fighters, but are the fights themselves going to be fun? I do think Kennedy Nzechukwu, like he's looked really good at heavyweight. I don't hate that fight with Walter Walker. I think someone will get finished, and that's kind of what this card is to me. It's you're either going to have a nasty knockout one way or another, apart from maybe like the Bonfim one, which will likely be submission, as we said, or it's going to be a really tedious, kind of grueling. Oh god, we have to watch 15 minutes of this fight going, especially with the amount of heavyweights, light heavyweight fights that we do have on this card. More than your standard card that we've seen recently, but at least we're seeing some activity in those divisions. I'll just say like the other one, Vitor Petrino and Austin Lane. I don't know why that fight's even a thing.
Yeah.
Like it's not great. Do like watching Morgan Charrier.
Me as well.
So I would just say those ones are kind of the ones, and hard to bash Chris Curtis for what he's done so far in the UFC.
Yeah, it's a lot of this is going to be I'm not too thrilled, but like I'm interested to see if any of these weight class changes have really like if I watch one of these guys and go, "Oh wow, like I'm really impressed." Like what happens if Chris Curtis comes out here at 170 and looks tremendous? Like I don't think that's a impossible outcome. What happens if Vitor Petrino looks outstanding at heavyweight? I'm interested to see these things, but it's nothing that I think I probably care more about some of these things than the average person.
Oh, yeah.
And then from there, I think the Landwehr Charrier fight's a good fight of the night. If you're predicting good potential there, Calvin Kattar versus Steve Garcia is a weird one, but I do think that one's got the potential for fun just based on how those two guys strike and are willing to throw down. And then Chidi and Jokoani and Jake Matthews is going to be another one that I am interested in from a prelim perspective. Another weird one. Chidi recently dropped down to welterweight, so he doesn't have that many fights in the weight class. Very weird fight as well, but interested.
He's looked good at welterweight so far, I will say.
Yeah. And Chidi's a guy I used to have high hopes for, and then it kind of dwindled off with some weird performances, but then he's had some good performances, and it's just a couple of guys. I think that's the theme. A lot of these guys, like I've seen some things I like from you. I've seen some things I really don't like. Like Calvin Kattar is a great example. Like Calvin Kattar at one point, I'm just absolutely in awe of his striking skills. But then, I've had some performances that have kind of, he gets injured in one. The judges rob him against Josh Emmett in one. And it's just, he's gotten weird almost. So I feel like that's a trend for a lot of these guys. Mike Davis is fighting on the card. Mike Davis, I think he's been in a couple weight classes. I'd have to double check, but he's talked about like, yeah, I don't really like fighting. I'm just really good at it. And it's like, that's weird to me when I hear fighters say that. So yeah, there's a lot of weirdness that I just think hopefully it plays out in a way that creates some finishes rather than a lot of like, what the hell is going on? So that's my optimistic hope for the weekend.
And who knows? Anything's possible in the UFC. It's going to be fun. We'll be watching no matter what, because we always do.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Through the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's all good after this one. I mean, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, next week's pay-per-view is...
As far as pay-per-views go, that's a hell of a fight night card. As we talked about earlier, that's a little rough.
The UFC Saudi Arabia card, I believe that's Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi or whatever country they're in.
It's kind of sick.
Yeah, that's got Whitaker DeRitter, Piotr Jan Marcus McGee, Aaron Pico,
and Mobsar.
Movsar Evloev. Those are three tremendous fights to
I mean,
top a fight night card.
the rest of the main card is Bryce Mitchell and Saeed Nurmagomedov, and then
Good
Shara
fight.
Bullet and Marc-Andre Barrios, which
Yeah.
fine by me.
For a 5-fight night card, I think that's a pretty good offering right there.
Yeah.
I talk a lot of shit, but that's one that I look at and really, really think is a good one.
I guess it does get a little rough after that. We even have Miral Bonsi main event.
Ugh.
And then Roman
right.
Dolce and Fluffy Hernandez.
All right, we're ending the show on that note.
Yep.
Thank you guys for tuning in. And if you stuck through this whole entire episode of us just pulling topics out of what we could pull topics out of, shout out to you. You're a real one. Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to head to vendettasportsmedia.com to check out written content that will have preview and predictions for UFC Nashville will be up. Best bets is TBD because you got to scrounge together some bet. You got to have 3 best bets to make a best bets post. No guarantees. I will try, but there's a chance I find one. There's a chance the only one that I like is Derrick Lewis plus 230, and I'm not writing UFC best bets with only Derrick Lewis and no fallback options. So I'll just tell you that right now. So there may not be a best bets post, but there will be a preview with in-depth breakdowns of all 6 main card fights. That's right, and in-depth breakdowns on Vitor Petrino and Austin Lane because that is a main card fight. You are welcome for everyone who reads those, and thank you from my end as well for reading them. So make sure to check that out and tune in next week. We will have a pay-per-view preview next week. So that is the plan